Welcome to Biblical Root Study. This is the first week. We already did the introduction, and I had some audio problems. It seemed a whole lot quieter than I planned, so hopefully I fixed that and made it louder. If not, I'm going to have to mess with it again. Like I said, I am not that technologically savvy. I'm new to this whole screen capture thing and recording audio this way, and I'm even new with the editing software that I'm using to put it all online. So please have some grace with me. So we're going to be going through Job 1 through 7 this week. Now, I was thinking of just reading through the text, and as things come up, share what I found through them and go through. Now, I realized this Bible study is going to be a whole lot harder than I first realized. And it's because I'm trying not to jump to any further texts to explain things. And that's really, really hard to do when you're going through chronological order the book is written. And why I say that is I want to go to Genesis so bad because it explains so many things. But I believe this book came first, as many scholars and people believe that this came before Genesis, as in written. It was around the time of the patriarchs, it was assumed. I'm going with the general consensus there. It could be later, and I'll explain that later why I think it possibly could be. But for the place of the story, it is definitely placed in the time of the patriarchs, from as much as I can tell in the story. But we'll get into that, and we'll pull things out that I see. Obviously, going through 7 chapters in a week there's going through so many things, and I'm obviously going to miss things. So if I miss anything, please feel free to share it in the comments, or just let me know what you're seeing. I'll try adding it too. I'll judge it, or if I put things in the wrong section, such as here's my target of things that are clearly expressed, or things that are implied, things that I figure are figures of speech or stories or poetic, and then general truths or things. We shouldn't be finding anything outside the scripture because we're only going into the scripture. But if you think that I'm bleeding in my doctrine of things that are not found in the scripture and putting them in different places, please feel free to call me out on that, and with gentleness and humility, and we'll discuss it as we go. And so let's get started going through this. Where are we? I like the New American Standard Version, or the New American Standard Bible, like I said. So it is not freely available on eSword. I've got all these other great translations and great commentaries of things that I found, and a bunch of dictionaries and other things that are in their reference library. Like I found the whole Apostolic Fathers in Greek and Latin, it says, which I've been looking for this all over, and I'm really thankful to find it. But I found it on Amazon for $1,000 for the print copies, but it's such a blessing to be able to find these things on eSword and be able to go through and read them in the original language, which is just great. So I can't recommend getting eSword enough, and we're going to be using this a lot through the study. But for my main reading, I'm going to go through the NASB, or some of the ESV and the King James. And I don't speak Hebrew, but it does help seeing words and looking through and going into what they mean and what they say, and we're going to be doing a lot of word studies in this Bible study, so we're definitely going to use that. But yeah, let's just get started. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And that man was blameless, upright, fearing God, and turning away from evil. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. His possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yokes of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and very many servants. And that man was the greatest of all the men of the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the days of feasting have completed their cycle, Job would send and consecrate them, rising up early in the morning and offering burnt offerings. I just moved in, I lost my spot. And offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, Perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. So we're just going to dig into that first part there, the first 5 chapters. Let's see what I found. First, let's see. Facts about God that we can pull up from this first part. We see the early nations knew God. Uz is not in it's not in Israel. So this is pre-Israel, and all the other names of the people that are in this, they're pre-Israel names. They're in the area, but these are people that followed God and worshipped God and understood God that were outside of Israel, which Israel's not even mentioned yet because we're not starting with Genesis or Exodus or any of those things. And like I said, that's the most challenging part of the study because that's something really interesting to pull out of this, but I always know it in the context of the story. So we're just going to go through these early nations. They knew God, they followed him, which would make sense if Genesis is true and when it comes through and how those things would have been passed down. But we don't have Genesis yet, so I can't keep going through there. And like I said, that's challenging, not trying to pull from other parts of the Bible to grab this, because that's how I've always done it. But that's how this study's a bit different, and I still need to get used to it. So please bear with me. But let's see some other things that we can see through God. Here he says, the first name, it says in Job 1:1, it says he was fearing God. So what does fearing God mean? Right there, it says the word there is Elohim, and it means God. So we're going to pull that up in eSword. And it says right here, we'll pull this up. And a second, give this a little space. Elohim, it's a plural form of God, even though it's referencing one God, and it's meant in that aspect, or the supreme God. And I've heard people such as Dr. Brown and other Jewish people say that this is used, they pluralize words to show respect and to show that there's it's just a form of respect to use the word Elohim rather than the singular word, which they use that as well, but we'll get to that. So it's they talk about supreme God there, but this is, let's see, occasionally a way of magistrates, sometimes it's a splurt of angels, exceeding gods, goddesses, it just means like a heavenly being, or we'll just, for the Bible study's sake, we will say that means God. I mean, it's pretty welcomed and easily understood as such. Let's see if I'm missing anything else. God's likes. And okay, so it talks about who Job is. But yeah, we got to get a little bit further into that. So let's keep reading a little bit. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before God, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around it." The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? Have you blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land? But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has. He will surely curse you to your face." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not put forth your hand on him." So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. All right, so let's get a little bit deeper in there and to our likes. Since it says of what God says of Job, let's go here. And thanks to Satan. And then, so what God says is, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there's none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." So you see what God's perspective is of Job as he holds him very high. God says he's blameless and upright. He fears God and turns away evil. So if we see Job as being blameless and upright and fears God in his sight, well, we can go back to what it said about Job, which the author, whoever that might be, and what he shows us of what Job does and what God likes about him is that he fears / respects God. It says that he hates evil. He likes people that are sanctified and purified, is what Job did for his children and doing things like that. He offered burnt offerings. So we don't know exactly what those are. It just means lifting up with fire and like the smoke. So were they animals? Was it incense? I mean, whatever it might be, this is all that we have to go on in this ancient first writing. So we don't know exactly what the burnt offerings are, but what God said, he was blameless and upright in what he was doing. So what he was doing pleased God, and these are all implied by this because it doesn't expressly say that what he's doing is pleasing God, but what we're doing is looking through the scripture and we're implying from his position of being blameless and upright in what he's doing, these things are things that are pleasing to God. But like I say, it's not clearly expressed, so we're putting that in its right place in our understanding. And let's see what else. Oh, we have some new names for God too. So while this is in the author's perspective, not in Job's perspective, because no person's saying it, but it's in the story when God is where he is, the sons of man are coming, which believed to be like angels or heavenly beings coming in front of God, as well as Satan the adversary. But he's referred to as Yahweh, and that's the word that's translated there as Lord, which we will pop that up and see that. It says, "Now in the day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord," and the word Lord there is Yahweh. It means the self-existent or eternal. Some people pronounce it Jehovah. It's a Jewish national name of God, is what they say, but these aren't the Jews saying this. So it is, as we can tell from this, it is the name of God. It is Yahweh. So it's the personal name. I've heard it say as the covenant name, but Job is not in this covenant but he's not the one saying it. But it's the name known of God. His name is Yahweh. Like there's a lot of names that they say things that are descriptive words of him, which, I mean, self-existing one, that is also a descriptive word, but it is known as his name. And yeah, so also we can see just by God's dislikes, it says sin and blasphemed. Now, oh yeah, this is an interesting one, which we have to go to it in 5. It says, and when the feast days had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. And the interesting thing about this is the word cursed here. So we'll look over here, and these are called strong numbers. A guy named Strong went through the whole Bible, put together each word with their definition and labeled them so you can see how many times they occurred. It's a really helpful way of going through the Bible and seeing things. But so you click here and you look at the word cursed. In the original Hebrew was Barak or Barak. Really bad at pronouncing these things, and I'm bad at pronouncing things in English, so you will find as you do this, you are going to cringe every time you hear me say a word in a different language, and I'm sorry for that. But the word means to kneel or bless, or, I mean, so how does a word that means bless and to kneel also mean to curse, the exact opposite? Which there's some speculation among scholars of why this word, the cursed God, is changed, or is the word bless, because it doesn't make much sense that he's doing an offering just in case they sinned and blessed God in their hearts. Doesn't make any sense, right? Well, some people think this is an imposition, as in they're putting this word in just kind of like a, I don't know, noma sacra, as in they don't want to write the word curse God in Hebrew. You know, they don't want that word to appear in the Bible. So instead of putting bless God, or instead of putting curse God, so they don't have to write it, they're writing bless God. And that is one theory, and it could, but it seems like the writers, there's several other times they use the word cursed, you know, like when he says he cursed his own birth, which comes later. It's a word curse, and not here in these instances, which it could be something like that, but there's not a lot of support for it because there's people that curse God, and it's written in there, and they don't use it. So it could be the particular writer of Job did that, because this is in there a couple times. Also, like when Job's wife tells him, why don't you just curse God and die? Is that the case? I'm not certain. And I think it is tied up with the word sin, which we're looking at things that God doesn't like, because it's implied by Job in his practices of what he does. But the word sin is kata, and it means miss. And I've heard this as an archery term, meaning to miss the mark and not doing the right thing. So I think if we see the word cursed, which is actually the word bless, next to the word sinned, I think it kind of makes sense of what they're trying to say. So if he says, it may be that my sons have missed and blessed God, as in they missed blessing God, and they forgot to bless God, or maybe blessed God in the wrong way, such as blasphemed him, of using and blessing him in vain, or not understanding how they're blessing God, or doing it improperly or without reverence, that's why he's offering the thing. And that could possibly be the context of this, which makes sense. I mean, that God would not want to be blasphemed or treated without respect in that sense of things God does not like. And this is implied too. So as we go further, hopefully this will be cleared up. Let's go back and read some more of the text. So we also see, gotta do one more point. In God's dislikes, we see Satan. And this is implied because his name, Satan, means adversary. So if it's God's adversary or man's adversary, whatever the case, we can imply, it's implied that this is a person that God does not like. And he does not like what he's doing, what he's about, or anything about it. Okay, so let's go back to reading. So let's see. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not put forth your hand on him." So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. Now on the day when the sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabeans attacked and took them. They also slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels, and took them and slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And behold, a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they died, and I alone have escaped to tell you." Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. He said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Through all this, Job did not sin, nor did he blaspheme God. All right, that's the end of that. So that is Job 121. I just want to take a look at that in the eSword. Oh, yep, here it is. I was wrong. I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. Job does call God Yahweh. And I was thinking that was just in the heavenly story earlier, but yeah, I did miss that. He does call him Yahweh right there several times. So, I mean, Job knew who God was, he knew his name, and he knew about him, which is great, and it makes sense that he knew him so well because of how God viewed him. He wasn't just worshiping God in ignorance, but he knew him, which this is a time when God was not completely forgotten in the world by everyone. So, yeah, it's a powerful story. So let's go to chapter 2, and we'll keep reading. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around it." The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. And he still holds fast his integrity, although you incite me against him to ruin him without cause." Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. However, put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh. He will curse you to your face." So the Lord said to Satan, Behold, he is in your power, only spare his life. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, and he took a potsherd to scrape himself while he was sitting among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity they had come upon him, they came each one from his own place: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. And they made an appointment together to come to sympathize with him and comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes at a distance and did not recognize him, they raised their voices and wept. And each of them tore his robe, and they threw dust over his head toward the sky. Then they sat down on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, with no one speaking a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great. All right, so let's see what kind of things we can learn about God in the 2nd chapter. Let's see, God's attributes. Now, this is a very interesting one. It says God is sovereign. Now, the word sovereign's not in there, is just implied through this. And this is because we see the relationships of the sons of God and Satan, that they could do nothing to Job without God's permission. And here's a quote that what God says. He says, And he still holds fast his integrity, although you incite me against him to ruin him without cause. And this is, God saying that the only reason Satan could do this is because he allowed it to happen. And then later we see the Lord say to Satan, Behold, he is in your power, only spare his life. And these things are seen as something that God does, because if you heard in the second chapter, when he's saying all these things and Satan is saying, touch his bone and doing all these things, he's seen as it's something he's going to do, but he's telling God to do it because he does not have the power to touch people without God's authority. So very early on, it is clearly shown that God is sovereign, which also comes, and this is implied because it shows all these things. It doesn't directly say it, but it does imply it. But what it does directly say, which is also very interesting, in our relationship with God, it says we have a choice. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused or messed up, and there's Calvinism and Arminianism that are trying to debate these and discuss them and do it. Well, we're just looking at the beginning, going through the order that they're written, chronological order. But we do see that this is expressed in Job 1, 8, and through 10. So let me go back really quick. Let's see. It says, And the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? So we see what Satan has to do and have the ability to do all these things can't do anything without God telling him. But the Lord Yahweh is talking about how he chooses to do these things. He's turning away from evil. And he also says, Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And I'm not saying Calvinism's wrong. I'm not saying Arminianism's right. I'm not going into any of that because, Calvinism is obviously a more complex thing. They believe I'm not a Calvinist personally, and there's so many things that I do. I mean, I listen to things that they say, so they believe in different levels of free will and choice and being able to do that, but I'm not going to support them. I'm not going to refute them. I'm just going by what the Bible says. But we do see Satan is trying to get Job to choose to not follow God as he has chosen to follow God, that he is doing all these things from what he has, and Satan can't understand why Job is following God, because he thinks it's due to what God has given him and how he set him up, but he's showing his heart through there. And this is a very complex issue of seeing why God is allowing Satan to do this. Is he trying to just show him? Is he bragging? What is he doing? It's more complex than that, and I don't even have the ability, going through a study like this, to lay out the heart of God and why he did what he does. And I can't tell you, but hopefully we'll see that more clearly as we go. But we haven't gotten there yet, and there's not an explanation which will go, but that's even the point of the whole book, of why does this happen and why does this go about. So let's see if there's anything else. That one's later. Okay, facts about God. Satan is restrained by God and what he can do, and that is expressed. So we see that that is true. I'm also talking about the sovereignty of God in there. God has authority over man. That's implied, obviously, when it's talking about God putting a hedge around Job and doing all those things for him, and God having the power. Satan can't touch him unless God gives him the power, which it is implied that means man is God's, and God has authority over him to allow those things to do, because if God didn't have authority of that, he couldn't give authority to let his body be touched or his possessions to be taken or anything like that. We'll go rest. We also see the sons of God are in subjection to God. They're also in subjection as well as Satan is. So let's see, names. We don't have any new names yet in the second one. God's likes, nothing new there. And nothing new on that one. All right, so let's read another chapter and get into it. Afterward, this is after the 7 days of them being quiet. This is Job 3. It says, afterward, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job said, let the day perish on which I was to be born, and the night which said, a boy is conceived. May the day be darkness. Let no God above care for it, nor light shine on it. Let darkness and black gloom claim it. Let a cloud settle on it. Let the darkness of the day terrify it. As for the night, let darkness seize it. Let no rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let the night be barren. Let no joyful shout enter it. Let those who curse it, who curse the day, who are prepared to rouse Leviathan. Let the stars of the twilight be darkened. Let it wait for the light, but have none. And let it not see the breaking dawn, because it did not shut the opening of my mother's womb, or hide trouble from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth, come forth from the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me, and why the breast that I should suck? For now I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept then. I would have been at rest with kings and with counselors of the earth, who rebuilt ruins for themselves, or with the princes who had gold, and who were filling their houses with silver. Or like a miscarriage which is discarded, I would not be, as infants that never saw light. There the wickedness cease from raging, and there the weary are at rest. The prisoners are at ease together. They do not hear the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from the master. Why is light given to him who suffers, and life to the bitter of soul, who long for death, but there is none, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice greatly and exult when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my groaning comes at the sight of my food, and my cries pour out like water. For what I fear comes upon me, and what I dread befalls me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet, and I am not at rest, but turmoil comes. So, looking through this chapter, there's not a whole lot we're learning about God. We're seeing just Job curse his birth. I think maybe we got a new name of God in that one. We did. So when he used the word God in Job 3:4, he used the word Eloah. It's the singular of Elohim. It just also means God. So it's very close to the same word there. He's just using, it's another name for God. So besides that, let's just read the next chapter. So Job chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered, "If one ventures a word with you, will you become impatient? But who can refrain from speaking? Behold, you have admonished many, and you have strengthened weak hands. Your words have helped the tottering to stand, and you have strengthened feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you are impatient. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember now whoever perished being innocent, or where were the upright destroyed?" Oh, sorry. Let me read that with different emphasis. This is chapter 7. "Remember now, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the upright destroyed? According to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble harvest it. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they come to an end. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the fierce lion and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The lion perishes for lack of prey, and the whelps of the lioness are scattered. Now a word was brought to me stealthily, and my ear received a whisper of it. Amid disquieting thoughts from the visions of the night, when a deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me and trembling, and made all my bones shake. Then a spirit passed by my face. The hair of my flesh bristled up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice. Can mankind be just before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? He put no trust even in his servants, and against his angels he charged error. How much more of those who dwell in the houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed before the moth? Between morning and evening they are broken in pieces. Unobserved they perish forever. Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? They die, yet without wisdom." All right, so there's quite a bit to look at and more things that we're learning through this. And this is interesting because of its complexity. There's a lot of general truths that Eliphaz is saying, and he even admits it. He says he knows this because it's what he's seen. Kind of like, let's see. When he says, "Remember now, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the upright destroyed? According to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble harvest it." This is, some people call this the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow. Karma. I mean, there's different names for this concept, but it is definitely a general truth. It's not personally about God, but just about, in general, what happens, that it comes back to you. And we see this a lot, but it's not in this poetic sense of a general truth, not necessarily about God, but just in general coming. We're not going to put that in the text of what we know about God, the law of harvest, yet. It may come up later, and we will see. But what we do have is we have a couple more names for God in this. He calls God Maker in 4:17. He says, "Can mankind be just before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker?" So we see that we are made by God. Not only is there this self-existing one who's powerful, but he is also our Maker, or our Creator, which is a great revelation of God, that people know that God made us, and that's how we got here. So we have a God who made us, who is self-existent, and he is a God. Let's see. There's a couple other things. Let's see, where are they? No, that's the next chapter. That's the next chapter for most of that. Oh, so we've got some new names. He refers to something above man that doesn't dwell in clay like we do, and he calls them servants and messengers. Or the word is translated angels, but the word there is messengers. So servants and messengers, which is something that's above man. And this aspect of something above man links together with that concept of sons of God, and we'll see more of that unveiled in Job as it goes on. But so we see that there's these other heavenly beings, but as we also see, they're in subjection to God, that they have to meet with him on an appointed day, whatever day that is. We don't know how often or anything, but they meet before God. And as we see, if Satan, he is bunched together with these sons of God, but he's also distinct. So is Satan a son of God? It's not revealed yet. But we do see that there's these servants, messengers, sons of God, just all these things that are above man that people have this concept of. Let's see, we went through the name. Let's see. That one's next. And, so for the list of God's dislikes, he uses the word those who plow iniquity, and he's talking in a figure of speech, something God does not like. So we see in a form, which we're getting to it later, that God is a God of justice, that he doesn't like when people do things that are obviously bad. And where that scale is of good and bad and all that, we just know that he uses figure of speech so far. Those who plow iniquity, God does not like, and it's an implied figure of speech. So let's get into more of what Eliphaz has to say. He continues on. So Job 5:1. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? And to which of the holy ones will you turn? For anger slays the foolish man, and jealousy kills the simple. I have seen the foolish taking root, and I curse him, and I curse his abode immediately. His sons are far from safety. They are even oppressed in the gate, and there is no deliverer. His harvest the hungry devour, and take it to a place of thorns. And the schemer is eager for their wealth. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble sprout from the ground. For man is born for trouble, as sparks fly upward. But as for me, I would seek God. and I would place my cause before God, who does great and unsearchable things, wonders without number. He gives rain on the earth and sends water on the fields, so that he sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the plotting of the shrewd, so that their hands cannot attain success. He captures the wise by their own shrewdness, and the advice of the cunning is quickly thwarted. By day they meet with darkness, and grope at noon as in the night. But he saves from the sword of their mouth, and the poor from the hand of the mighty. So the helpless has hope. The unrighteousness must shut its mouth. Behold, how happy is the man whom God reproves. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty, for he inflicts pain and gives relief. He wounds, and his hands also heal. From 6 troubles he will deliver you. Even in 7 evil will not touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You will be hidden from the scourge of the tongue, and you will be afraid of violence when it comes. You will laugh at the violence and famine, and you will not be afraid of wild beasts, for you will be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field will be at peace with you. You will know that your tent is secure, for you will visit your abode and fear no loss. You will know also that your descendants will be many, and your offspring as the grass of the earth. You will come to the grave in full vigor, like the stacking of grain in its season. Behold, this we have investigated, and so it is. Hear it and know for yourself. Well, this is a really interesting thing. He's got a lot of good things to say, but it's very interesting how wrong he is in so many things. And we have to look at this in the context of the story, because of what we're going into is what we're talking about is general truths about God. And he is putting these general truths in his layer right here of thinking they're expressed or deep down truths of God, when in fact they're general truths. And how do we know what he's saying is general truths and he's wrong? Because we can see the story that he cannot see. We can see that Job is breaking these rules of what Eliphaz is saying right now. Eliphaz is talking about how you don't have to worry about your children dying, or you don't have to worry about bad things coming to you or taken away if you're righteous, and those things only happen to the wicked. But Job is blameless in God's sight, and he's a good man, and these things aren't happening because Job is bad. It's completely a spiritual issue between God and Satan that has nothing to do with his character or why bad things are coming. So he's saying a lot of things, but they're just general truths, and he admits it. As he says, behold this, we have investigated it, and so it is. Hear it and know for yourself. And this is what a lot of people I see do in Christianity as well. They're not basing what they believe on God about what is shown to be true in Scripture, but they see what's going on in their life, and they base God on that. And you should not base your experience. You should not base God on your experience, because what they were doing is, when he's saying, behold this, we have investigated and so it is, hear it, is they're looking at what's happening outside in their world, and they're realizing who God is in that, which is very hard to do because there is no scripture for them, right? This is the very first book, and it's written till after this, so what do they have to look at? What do they have to know about God? And we can see in Eliphaz, let's go to 4. in our relationship with God, which I did not write this, but we see that Eliphaz was a prophet. Because, I mean, they didn't have the Bible, so they do have the past that they can tell from generation to generation, which, I mean, they can get a lot lost from Adam, which can't even get into that and say that because it's not even mentioned yet through the writing, but they don't have only the Bible for their communication of this. As of right now, in this story, they don't even have the Bible. So everything they knew through God was by what they could experience and see happening, because they don't have that much divine revelation. They can either have the past of when people did know God or what they did see from him, or their experience or revelation. And we're going back to Job 4:12, and this is where he receives this prophecy. He says, "Now a word was brought to me stealthily. My ear received the whisper of it, amid thoughts from visions of the night when deep sleep falls on men." So he was asleep. And it says, "Dread came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones shake." And so he's obviously awakened or something. In the dead of sleep, he awakes, shaking in fear. And it said, "A spirit glided past my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence, and then I heard a voice. Can mortal men be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker?" And then this is him going on again, explaining more of what he's seen, but this is his prophetic vision that he's had. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? Which is a very interesting prophecy of just revealing that truth. Can this be, from the very, very beginning, the very first prophecy we have is a question God is asking him. The Spirit is asking him, can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? And, yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question that is pretty much a central question of what the Bible's about. So we will go on further and we'll get that answered. But let's look at some of these things. So here's some of God's attributes that we see through what Eliphaz knows. It says, "He does great and unsearchable things, wonders without number." So now, he can be wrong in a lot of stuff. Not wrong, but just general truths. And he's speaking these general truths that he knows through God, who's been revealed to him. And why do I say this is expressed? Well, down here, just a couple sentences later, it's a general truth. Well, it goes by the fact of what it is. "He does great and unsearchable things, wonders without number." Can you generally do great and unsearchable things, wonders without number? I mean, you can't generally do something without number. You either do or you don't. And he's saying it is the fact. So this is an expressed truth. It is clear in Scripture that God does unsearchable things, wonders without number. It is also expressed that he gives rain on the earth and sends water on the fields. Now, you can't just generally give rain and send water in the fields. I mean, I guess you could in a way that God specifically gives rain sometimes, and then other times it just kind of happens. So in that sense, it could be a general truth, but it is still, like, the way I see it is either it's true or it's not. So this is expressed. It is what it is. Then here's his other one. "He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety." Now, we can see for a fact, as the story is about, that this is not always true. Is it true some of the time? Yes, because as he's seen through his experience that this is what God does. It is a general truth of God. It's not always absolutely the fact, But in general, this is what God does. He frustrates the plotting of the shrewd so their hands cannot attain success. He captures the wise by their own shrewdness, and the advice of the cunning is quickly thwarted. This is another general truth of something of God's character, which goes into God's justice. God is a God of justice. He inflicts pain and gives relief. He wounds, and his hands also heal. Does God always heal? Does he always inflict pain and then give relief? I mean, this is a general truth of what we're seeing Eliphaz mention. But like I said, he's not seeing the whole picture, as we will find out as the story goes on and as we've already seen. We do have a new name, and the word is El, when he's referring to God, and it's the word mighty one, and that's what El means. It means mighty one. And El is also translated many, many, many times in the Bible, God. So, and another one is Shaddai, when he says he's the Almighty, or the most powerful. So this is also talking about God using all these singular pronouns, and are these singular nouns, so it's talking in singular of who this person is. So we know that while they're going through, they're talking about Elohim, Yahweh, Elah, Osa, El, Shaddai. These are all talking about the same person. The same person's revealed to all these people, and it is this mighty, mighty person, which we have the name right here, is Yahweh, the self-existing one of who we are seeing this to be. Let's see. More God's likes. It says it's a general truth that God likes the lowly and those that mourn. He looks after them. He takes care of them. And as I say, I mean, that's a general truth. Like, does God like everyone that mourns? I mean, it's not saying that God likes people mourning, like he's up there like kicking people to make them cry. That's not what it's saying. It's like when people mourn, his heart is there for them, that he loves them, and those that are lowly, that's God loves the underdogs. He loves those people that are in those low places, and he cares for them, and he's looking out for them. But not always. I mean, if someone's mourning that they couldn't kill more people, God's probably not sitting there watching them and being happy for them. That's like why this is a general truth of God in general likes the lowly and those that are mourn, that his heart is for those people. And so God's dislikes, as we're seeing through this beautiful part of Hebrew poetry of Eliphaz, this is implied that God dislikes injustice. These are the general truths that we're seeing. You know, he says the plotting of the shrewd and the advice of the cunning. God is taking these people down and he's making them come to nothing. That all these general things, God does not like injustice. God is a God of justice. He likes justice. He takes care of things. He is a God of right and wrong. He's not fickle on those sense, but as we will find that out more as we go. All right, let's see. Man 6. This is Job 6. Let's see. Then Job answered, "Oh, that my grief were actually weighed and laid in the balances together with my calamity, for then it would be heavier than the sand of the seas. Therefore my words have been rash, for the arrows of the Almighty are within me. Their poison my spirit drinks. The terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild donkey bray over his grass, or does the ox low over his fodder? Can something tasteless be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? My soul refused to touch them. They are like loathsome food to me. Oh, that my request might come to pass, and that God would grant my longing. Would that God were willing to crush me, that he would loose his hand and cut me off. But it is still my consolation, and I rejoice in unsparing pain, that I have not denied the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should wait? And what is my end that I should endure? Is my strength the strength of stones, or my flesh bronze? Is it that my help is not within me, and that the deliverance is delivered from me? And that the despairing man there should be kindness from his friends, so that he does not forsake the fear of the Almighty? My brothers have acted deceitfully like a wadi, like a torrent of wadis, which vanish, which are turbid because of ice, and into which the snow melts. When they become waterless, they are silent. When it is hot, they vanish from this place. The path of their course wind along. They go into nothing and perish. Their caravans of Tamah looked. The travelers of Sheba hoped for them. Of Sheba. The travelers of Sheba hoped for them. They were disappointed, for they had trusted. They came there and were confounded. Indeed, you have now become such. You see a terror and are afraid. I have said, give me something, or offer a bribe for me from your wealth, or deliver me from the hand of the adversary, or redeem me from the hand of tyrants. Teach me, and I will be silent, and show me how I have erred. How painful are honest words. But what does your argument prove? Do you intend to reprove my words? When the words of the one in despair belong to the wind, you would even cast lots for the orphans and barter over your friends. Now please look at me and see if I lie to your face. Desist now, let there be no injustice. Even desist, my righteousness is yet in it. Is there injustice on my tongue? Cannot my palate discern calamities? So Job is telling people that he is not what they think he is. And I mean, we didn't learn a lot about God in that sense because he's just reproving his friends. So let's read the next chapter. Is not man forced to labor on earth? And are not his days like the days of a hired man? As a slave who pants for the shade, and as a hired man who eagerly waits for his wages, so am I allotted months of vanity, and nights of trouble are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise? But the night continues, and I am continually tossing until dawn. My flesh is clothed with worms and a crust of dirt. My skin hardens and runs. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and come to an end without hope. Remember that my life is but breath. My eye will not again see good. The eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. Your eyes will be on me, but I will not be. When a cloud vanishes, it is gone. So he who goes down to Sheol does not come up. He will not return again to his house, nor will his place know him any more. Therefore, I will not restrain my soul. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or the sea monster that you set a guard over me? If I say my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you frighten me with dreams and terrify me by visions, so that my soul would choose suffocation, death rather than my pains. I waste away. I will not live forever. Leave me alone, for my days are but a breath. What is man that you magnify him, and that you are concerned about him, that you examine him every morning and try him every moment? Will you never turn your gaze away from me, nor let me alone until I swallow my spittle? Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to myself? Why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I will lie down in the dust, and you will seek me, but I will not be. Oh, yeah, he is having a rough day, a rough time, which no doubt I would never want to be in his shoes. But I just missed a name that I realized. Job calls God, oh, watcher of men. So, watcher of men is, let's see, facts, relationships, names of God. I gotta put this as, he also used the word kadosh, that I missed in the chapter 6, but the Holy One, that there's a new name for God there, that he is the Holy One, which, means pure. So let's see, watcher of men, and that is in Job 7, where is that at? Job 7:20. 7:20. And I'll write and fill in the Hebrew of it in a bit, so you're not just sitting here watching me or listening to me type things, but become a watcher of mankind. Let's look at that. You preserve me. So set a mark against me that I have burdened myself. Thou preserver of men, a bad one, to conceal, besiege, hidden things, keeping, observe, present, watcher. So the word is natsar, to guard. So he's watching, as in like a watchman. He's a watcher of men. And it's just interesting saying what you can know about him through his name. So I'll fill that part out in a little bit. But let's just go through, make sure we cut everything else. We did all these. This is another general truth that we said, and this is just the Bible verse of 5 of Eliphaz, of what he says. So this is a general truth of who God is in general, but like I say, you won't take these and say, well, this is a guarantee. I won't be afraid of wild beasts. I don't have to worry about famine or violence because I believe in God. You can't hold that as a promise when it's just a general truth and a general understanding of what God normally happens in the world and happens. Let's see. I gotta fill out that one. And for the most part, that is Job 1 through 7. Well, thank you for listening to me. I know it's been a little bit, and it's going to take a long time. I'm assuming this is about the average time of each one of these videos, so I hope you've been blessed and enjoy this. And if you're reading along next week, which Tuesday or the day I'm going to try writing these, putting them out because it's my day off. But next week we're doing Job chapter 8 through 14, so please join me then as we go through the entire Bible. I'm going to put these notes up on biblicalrootstudy.wordpress.com if you want to follow along or look at things more closely. And please like and share this video, subscribe, and so you can follow along and get the notifications of when things are happening. And be blessed, and let's keep digging into God's Word. Have a great day or night whenever you're watching this.